Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me today. My name is Jessica Lynn. I am a Kinsey Institute Global Ambassador, and I am coming to you live from England. Happy Pride Month. And I do live in the United Kingdom. I live just in a place called Sutton Caulfield, just outside of Birmingham. And I appreciate and I thank you, Cal Poly and Gala, for asking me to do a small presentation today to do a little presentation on my views on education about the LGBT community, specifically me about the transgender community. I happen to be an international transgender awareness speaker, and I started there in San Luis Obispo, California, right there at your area at Gala. So thank you for having me. So during today's presentation, during this talk, I want you to think about this. The future depends on what we do in the present. That's a Mahatma Gandhi statement that is written probably 100, 150 years ago. But to me, maybe not that long ago, but to me, that's a very, very powerful statement. The future depends on what we do in the present. We are the change for the future. That's what that statement says. We are the change. So as I said, I am a Kinsey Institute Global Ambassador, Kinsey Institute out of Indiana University. And I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with the Kinsey Institute. You've heard of the Kinsey Scale or the Kinsey Report. And the Kinsey Institute is probably the leading human sexuality research institute in the world, right? It was founded by Dr. Alfred Kinsey. Dr. Alfred Kinsey is an interesting fellow. He originally studied biology and he studied wasps and moths. And he got a job of teaching, and he was teaching biology at the Indiana University. I can't remember where he went to school, but it was in that area in New Jersey or New York or somewhere. And he came to IU, Indiana University, and he was a teacher of biology. And what happened is they asked him to do a class on human sexuality. And back when he came and took upon that class, you had to be married to take his course. And he had people lining up, and his course was the biggest, most popular course in IU history, Indiana University history. And he became an incredible human being where he did a lot of research. Alfred Kinsey himself, both him and his wife were bisexual, and he noticed that in all of his thousands and thousands of moths, that no two were alike. And he started getting really interested, and he brought it into the human sexuality world that no two humans are alike. And he started doing research, and he interviewed thousands and thousands and thousands of people. He went to prisons. He learned about the LGBT population before, when it was illegal. He would visit men in jails for being gay, and he learned so much information. In 1948, he produced a book called Sexual Behavior in Human Male. This book was massive. After this book was published, 1 out of every 2 people in the United States of America knew who Alfred Kinsey was. Alfred Kinsey helped change the world for the LGBTQ plus community. He doesn't take credit for it, but he was really the one that helped open up the world in the academic sense to the LGBT community. And what's really, really interesting, when he was writing this book, he had a mother that brought a child to him and says, "My young son wants to live life as a girl." And Alfred Kinsey had never seen this before, and he introduced this young child to a guy named Dr. Harry Benjamin. And some of you may have heard of Dr. Harry Benjamin. He became really, really interested in transgender issues, and he started researching it. And he basically founded so much information about the transgender community. Actually, WPATH, World Professional Association of Transgender Health, was named after Harry Benjamin, as originally it was called Harry Benjamin International Transgender Dysphoria Association. And they used his rules for people transitioning in in healthcare, right? So we're not doing a history lesson today. We're just trying to open up a little bit about the connection of the LGBT community with Alfred Kinsey. And as I said, in 1948, Alfred Kinsey wrote a book called Sexual Behavior in the Human Male, and it was massive. And in one paragraph in this book, I can't remember what chapter it was, but he wrote, "The world is not to be divided into sheep and goats, and not all things are black, nor all things white." Think about what he is saying here. Only the human mind invents categories and tries to force facts into separate pigeonholes. Think about that. The sooner we learn this concerning human sexual behavior, the sooner we shall reach a sound understanding of the realities of sex. I want you to envision yourself as you're walking through your university, as you're walking through your hotel, you're walking through the airport, and you look at all of the tens of thousands of people you see, the different hair colors, the different accents, the different foods they're eating, the different gods that they're preaching to, the different everything, the different accents, the different heights, the different tones of skin. Everybody there is different. Everybody has a unique, different journey. This is really, really interesting. Do you ever look at those people as you're walking through the airport, through your school? I've been to Cal Poly a number of times. And do you ever walk through that school? Do you ever look at the people and do you ever wonder, who are they? Who are those people that you're looking at? Look at those people from the airplane in the sky, walking through the mall, walking through the airport, and walking through the city street that happen to be here in London. What are their secrets? Think about that. What are their secrets? What are their stories? Think about that. Right now on planet Earth in the year 2021, we have 7,800,000,000 people on this planet. In that big, giant, beautiful blue planet that we all live in, there's 7,800,000,000 different people on this planet. For me to get to that number, I would have to start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and it would take me 250 years to count to that number, 7,800,000,000. And that is how many different stories there are on that big, giant, beautiful blue planet that we live on. 7,800,000,000 different stories. And yet no two of us are the same. It's not just our genetic makeup, our environment, events in our lives. These things do so much more to shape us. They write our stories. You could clone my DNA or find my long lost twin, but there will never be another me, and there will never be another you. Think about that. Right now on that big, beautiful planet that we all live on, there's 195 different countries, 4,300 different religions, 6,500 different languages. Think about that. This is what we call diversity, the different languages, the cultures. This is what makes the world a unique and beautiful place. And one of the most beautiful statements written is, the beauty of the world lies in the diversity of its people. And you really, really think about this, because what a boring world this would be if everybody looked, acted, dressed, ate the same foods, and talked the same. What a boring, boring world. But a word that goes along with diversity, which goes along with it but means completely the opposite, is discrimination. What is discrimination, and what is it to be discriminatory, or what is it to be prejudiced? Very, very few people would readily admit it, but it's innate in each and every single one of us. Every single day, we make assumptions about people we don't know. We hope to be understood as unique, the protagonist in our own story. But when we form an opinion about someone based off only of a trait that they share with somebody else, we are not treating them as an individual with their own story. However common these beliefs may be, they cease to be benign when they influence our decisions. This is what leads to discrimination. Who is it that decides how you're going to dress, who you're going to love, who you're going to marry, what food you're going to eat? Who is it? Do we have some supreme ruler, President Trump, or whatever? Who is it that decides? Who is it that decides what is normal? Who is it that decides? For generations after generations, people have been discriminated against because of the color of their skin. It has been going on for generations. We know of the slave trade across America, across the world, and it is still happening in the year 2021. We have Black Lives movement going on, Black Lives Matter movement going on right now in the year 2021. We see the discrimination because of the people's skin color. Now, I bet you don't think this, but how many people out there have red hair? Did you know a lot of people with red hair for generations were discriminated against? They called them witches or warlocks. Here in England, especially, they were burned alive or they were drowned because they were considered witches because of the color hair they were born with. Think about that. Now, how many of you are out there left-handed? About 10% of the world's population is left-handed. My mom happens to be one of those. She was born here in England, and when she was a young girl, they would tie her left hand behind her back and force her to write with her right hand. They said it is, quote, not normal to be left-handed, and they forced her to write with her right hand. Now, how about intersex? I'm sure you guys have heard the term intersex. It can fall under the transgender umbrella. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But that is the term intersex. It used to be called hermaphrodite. That is considered a negative term now. And another word of it is called disorders of sex development. It happens between 1% and 2% of the world's population. It could mean we're born with both genitalia. It could mean your chromosome count. It could be a lot of different areas. One of my best friends in California, Peggy Lee Jones, she's there in San Luis Obispo area. She was born intersex. And the doctor did 4 surgeries on her by the time she was 5 years old to fix her genitalia, to make her a, quote, normal boy. They forced her to live the life as a male. So what did they do to fix her when she didn't like living the life as male? They did electric shock therapy on her at the University of Oklahoma when she was 9 years old to fix her because she was born intersex. But these are just some of the aspects, the way people are born. They are discriminated against, their gender, their race, their ethnic origin, where they're born from, where they come from, the language that they speak. This isn't political and it's not religion. These are all aspects that have been discriminated against because of the way somebody is born. And as I said, it's been going on for generations after generations. It's now in the year 2021, and it is still happening, and it will continue happening. But today we're going to focus on one specific area. It is Pride Month. We're going to focus on the topic of LGBTQ+. We're actually focused on one letter of the LGBTQ. We're going to focus on the letter T and what it is to be transgender. So we have found one of the very best ways to help people understand more about what it means to be transgender is by telling our personal journeys, as education is the very, very best way to help end discrimination. And as I said, it is hard to hate someone whose story you know. I work with the Kinsey Institute. I've traveled the world. I've spoken all over the planet. And one of my biggest things is by telling my personal journey. So what I do is I travel the world. I have a number of different workshops. I train the NHS here in Britain. I train police departments in the country of Cyprus. I train professors in the country of South Africa. But one of the greatest ways to help people understand more about what it means to be transgender is by telling our personal journeys. I'm not going to tell you my personal journey today because I only have 20 minutes. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and how you figure out who I am and what makes me who I am today. So I was born into this world. I'm an old person. I'm 56 years old. I was born Jeffrey Allen Butterworth, January 29th, 1965. And you can see these old black and white pictures. That's how old I am. I'm pretty ancient. I come from a beautiful, typical family. I was grown up, raised in Southern California. I had an older sister. She's not in here. But as youngest as I can remember, at 4, maybe 5 years old, I wanted to look, dress, and act live like a girl. This is 1969, 1979, and that did not make sense. My mom was a Christian woman, and she said, Jeff, if you pray hard enough, God will move mountains. So I was on my hands and knees begging God night after night, day after day to say, please, God, turn me into a girl, and it did not happen. And a lot of people in certain media, they say children don't know what they want to be at that young of an age. But statistics prove them wrong. This comes from the American Academy of Pediatrics. And by age 4, most children have a stable sense of their gender identity. Not all. I want you to think about this. Not all, but most children have a stable sense of their gender identity by the age of 4, and that included me. So I wanted to be a girl, and I begged God night after night, day after day, and it became harder and harder and harder. And I stopped begging God. I just said, God, please take these feelings away. It wasn't going to happen, but it didn't take these feelings away. It just became harder and more difficult. So I found ways to escape. I played with my animals. We lived on a farm in Southern California. My parents being British, they introduced me and my brothers to the game of soccer. Here in Britain, we do call it football, but I started playing soccer, playing morning, noon, and night, and becoming better and better and better. When I was on that soccer field for 90 minutes trying to get that ball in that net, I was not thinking about wanting to be a girl. It became the greatest coping mechanism in the world. And there's a lot of people in the LGBT world that did the exact same thing that I did. Caitlyn Jenner, we have a lot of people, my friend, I have a lot of friends that have done the exact same thing, and I can't think about right now. But, you know, this is what happened. So when boys and girls are in school, high school, boys and girls start dating. Well, I wasn't particularly interested in girls. I had crushes on my teammates and all that kind of stuff. But when I was 17 years old, I met a young girl named Barbara. Barbara was 15 years old. She was beautiful, kind. We started a friendship. We started hanging around. She became my very, very best of friend. We started a relationship. When she was 15 years old, I came out to her and she said, you know what, I accept you for who you are. We figured maybe one day these things will go away, these feelings. She loved me and accepted me for who I was. And we spent 4 years together. Christmas 1984, I proposed to her. We started planning our lives and our marriage. So everything's going fantastic. And in Christmas of 1985, on the way home from work one day, a drunk driver broadsided us while we're in our truck. We broadsided, we rolled several times, a moving truck hit us, and we rolled a total of 7 times. Airlifted to Northridge Hospital. During that hospital air flight to the hospital, I died several times in the helicopter. You can imagine how horrific this car accident was. We rolled a total of 7 times. I broke my neck. The next time I got to see Barbara, she lying in a white coffin in her white dress, and I'm begging her to wake up. Never seen a dead body before. The next time I got to see her, I'm begging her to wake up. My life turned into an absolute living hell. I drank and drank. Cocaine became my drug of choice, and I had no idea how to deal with it. So this went on for a couple of years. And in June of 1987, during a long conversation, I came out to my parents. And in June of 1987, I sobered up and I came out to my parents, and it turns out that they had always known. It's another chapter of my book, and I won't get into that right now, but I sobered up right then. And I started planning on my transition. I went through a few years. Do I transition? Yes, no, yes, no. Then a few years later, I met a young lady. We became friends. I told her about what I wanted to do. She said, I'll help you. We ended up in a relationship. I put my transition aside. She got pregnant. We got married, and our first son was born August 18th, 1991. I was the perfect father. I wasn't the greatest husband, but she ended up getting pregnant a second time, and we had 2 beautiful little boys now. The relationship was going through some very, very difficult times. We ended up divorced. We ended up getting back together. We had a 3rd child in September of 1999. So now we had 3 beautiful boys. We moved up to the central coast of California in Santa Maria. Things happened. We split up again. We went through a nasty custody battle, 3 years, $65,000 custody battle, and the judge gave me full legal physical custody of all 3 boys. During this, after I received custody, I came out to their mother, said, I need to transition. She said, I will help you. I will work with you. Let me take the kids to Texas while you stay behind in California, start planning your transition. We made arrangements. You can just tell the older two boys, all I ask is we wait till Curtis is a little bit older, our youngest. So the time came, they moved to Texas. I flew to Texas to be with my family in Christmas, 2009. During a long conversation, I came out to my eldest son. He says, you have my full 100% support. A couple months later, I came out to my middle son. He goes, you have my full 100% support. And I was on the phone with my youngest son 3, 4, 5 times a day. We said, we'll wait till he's a little bit older before we tell him. So now I came back to California, started my transition. I went through my gender confirmation surgery. I'm seeing Dr. Denise Taylor for my hormones at the Gala Center. I'm going with meetings. I'm working on my transition. Me and my son Jeffrey are now sharing a condo in Grover Beach, him and his girlfriend in one room. I'm in another. I opened up a clothing store on Grand Avenue in Grover Beach called Jessica's Closet. Everything's gone fantastic. My son Bradley comes back and forth to California, accepts me, no problem. He looks at me and says, you look a little bit different, Dad, hugs me, and it became a non-issue. So everything is going well. I'm doing my transition. My life is going well. My 2 boys are really, really comfortable with me. I'm living my life. I'm really going well, and things are moving along. This picture made the front cover of a human sexuality book out of Berlin, Texas, out of Humboldt University, which is something I'm really, really proud of. But you can see as my transition of how I've evolved over time. I'm a little heavy right now, but we've been in COVID. I've not been able to leave the house. So you can imagine, I'm sure some of you guys have had that same issue. So now we are here in the year 2021. We're going to go back a little bit in time. We're going back to 2012 when my youngest son turns 12 years old. I contacted their mother and said, it's time we tell them. She in turn filed a lawsuit with the state of Texas. We went in front of Judge Scott Becker during a long couple months procedure. The judge ordered me to have a psychiatric evaluation done by a right-wing evaluator. He came back and said I was the better parent. Judge Scott Becker wouldn't allow it in the courtroom. And of June of 2013, during the gone court date, Judge Scott Becker terminated my parental rights to my youngest child. Judge Scott Becker told my little boy that he's never allowed to see me. He's never allowed to call me. He's never allowed to say, hey, Dad, I'm going to the prom tonight. Hey, Dad, I scored a goal in my soccer game today. Hey, Dad, I hit a home run. I am never, ever allowed to say Merry Christmas, Curtis. Here's a birthday card. Happy Merry Christmas. Happy Valentine's Day. Because I am transgender, 2 evaluations state I am the better parent. A judge in Dallas, Texas said, because I am who I am never allowed to be with my little boy ever, ever again. My paperwork went everywhere, all across the United States. Later that year, on Christmas Eve, 2013, I come home from work. In the mailbox, yellow envelope to Jessica Lynn in Grover Beach from her attorney in the state of Texas. There's the stamp on the envelope, Saturday, 21st of December. They put this in the mail that I would receive it on Christmas Eve, which I did. I open it up. I'm sitting in my car. And what does it say? Dated December 20th. Please find an enclosed copy of the order of termination. They mailed this to me on Christmas Eve to say, Merry Christmas, Jessica. You will never have a Christmas with your little boy ever, ever again. I sat there in my car shaking, reading this, going, why would they do this? Why? They didn't stop there. On page 4 of that same document, it is ordered that my name be removed from the birth certificate of my child. It was signed and dated September 20th. But this judge went as far as saying, according to the United States government, my child does not have a father anymore. Think about this. Because I am who I am, a judge in Texas said, I'm never allowed to be with my little boy ever, ever again. My case went everywhere, all across the United States. Later that year, 2014, I'm in Grover Beach. I'm driving down the street. My phone rings and it says Washington, D.C. I pick it up and the lady says, this is Megan so-and-so of the Department of Justice. We've done a major, major investigation into your case. This judge was way, way, way out of line, but she said it would take you years and years in Superior Court. There's not much you can do about it, Jessica. He crossed every T, dotted every I, and it would cost you tens of millions of dollars to fight it. She said he cannot take your name off your child's birth certificate. I sent her the paperwork, and it turns out that this is the first and only time in US history that a parent with a supportive, active role has been erased off a child's birth certificate. It has never happened before, but because I am who I am, this judge said I'm never allowed to be with my little boy ever again. In fact, he took my name off my child's birth certificate. So as I said in the beginning of this presentation, the beauty of the world lies in the diversity of its people. I sure as hell don't want to live in a world where everybody looks the same, everybody dresses the same, everybody eats the same food. Everybody has a different journey, a different story. That's the kind of world I want to live in. If I looked at everybody and they all look the same, to me, that would be an absolute living hell. When I lecture to a university, I don't want to see those students all looking the same. I want them to be individual. I don't want my child to be forced to live into somebody that he does not want to be. You see, I've lived an incredible, incredible, wonderful life. I've traveled the world. I have seen things. How many people do you know that have lived two complete genders? I have seen incredible things. I've had a wonderful full life. I've had some negative times, yes, but my problem isn't with me. My problem is with society saying, because I am who I am, I'm never allowed to be with my little boy ever again. Because I don't fit into that acceptable amount of difference, I've become just another secret. As much as a stranger to my son as I am to the millions of other lighted houses I fly over in the night sky. All of this because people like that judge in Texas, people that believe that some differences are too much, that some of those lights in the night sky deserve to be extinguished. As I said, this year's speaking tour is called Chasing Dreams. One of my closest friends in the world said, Jessica, why do you call it Chasing Dreams? You've accomplished your dreams. My dreams aren't accomplished until the world is more of an equal place. The Department of Justice said there's not much you can do with your case, Jessica, but what you can use is your story to help educate the world. And there's a phrase from Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, and it says, sometimes a chapter may end, but that does not mean that the story is over. So I used that little sentence right there. And I started speaking. I used my story, and I started speaking at Allen Hancock College. And then it went to Cuesta. Then my first university that I ever spoke to was at Cal Poly. Then I went to UCLA, UC Irvine, to Harvard, to Yale, to Stanford, and came to England. I spoke at Oxford, at Cambridge, University College London. And it went from there, different parts of the world. I've now lectured over 1,000 times in 28 different countries, educating students about what it means to be transgender. I don't just use my story, I use different forms of education, and it's all a way to help these students understand that they are the leaders. You are the leaders. You're the next teachers, doctors, lawyers, politicians, and almost every single one of you is going to be a parent. And sooner or later, you're going to have a sister, brother, or a child that says, I don't feel comfortable being a boy. I don't feel comfortable being a girl. I've spoken all over the world. And one of my favorite places that I work in is South Africa. I do a lot of work there. And I spoke a number of times where one of the greatest people on the planet that ever lived, Nelson Mandela, went to school. Nelson Mandela, I spoke on the same stage where he used to lecture from. Education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world. And he could not be more right. So as we leave today, as we celebrate Pride Month, I want you guys to celebrate diversity. Explore it, learn, find out about your friends, your cousins, your uncles, your aunts. Explore and celebrate it, because we are all equal. There's nobody above anybody, and there's nobody below anybody. Everybody's equal, and the diversity is what makes the world a beautiful place. I thank you for your time, and I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful Pride Month. and let's celebrate and be good. Thank you.